I'm Reagan, and I never thought I'd be standing in my own living room, staring down my husband and his mistress as they smirked at me like they'd already won. It was a warm morning in our suburban Atlanta home, the kind of place I'd poured my heart into making perfect. David, my husband, leaned against the kitchen island, his arms crossed, a sneer curling his lips. "Just pack your bags and get out, Reagan," he said, his voice dripping with contempt. Beside him, Jessica, his 25-year-old mistress, twirled a strand of her blonde hair, her eyes scanning the room like she was already redecorating it in her head. "Wow, Reagan, this place is gorgeous," Jessica said, her voice sugary but sharp. "All this high-end furniture, those sleek appliances, it's like it was made for me." She giggled, glancing at David, who nodded like he was proud of her audacity. My stomach twisted, not because I cared about their fling anymore, but because they thought they could erase me so easily. I'd built this home, every inch of it, with my own money and my eye for design. And they thought they could just take it? I took a deep breath, steadying myself. "Just so you know," I said, keeping my voice even, "I'm taking all my personal belongings when I leave." David chuckled, like I'd told a bad joke. "Fine, take your clothes, your little trinkets," he said, waving a hand. "Anything you leave behind would just remind me of the miserable years we've had." Jessica smirked, clearly thinking she'd scored a jackpot. They didn't get it, but that was fine. They'd understand soon enough. "Let's just make sure you don't regret this later," I said, locking eyes with David. His laugh faltered for a split second, but he shrugged it off, too smug to care. I turned away, my heart pounding, not with fear, but with the quiet fire of someone who's been underestimated one too many times. I'm 28, an interior designer with a knack for turning houses into homes that feel like art. I grew up in a small Georgia town where my mom and I would spend weekends rearranging our modest living room, dreaming up ways to make it beautiful on a budget. That's where my love for design started, mixing colors, textures, and shapes to tell a story. I worked hard, built a career, and by the time I met David, I was proud of the life I'd created. He was 33, a project manager in construction, charming and driven, or so I thought. We bonded over our love for fixing up old furniture, turning scraps into treasures. 3 years ago, we got married, promising to build a life together. At first, it was good. We'd laugh over late-night pizza, sketching ideas for our home on napkins. But somewhere along the way, David changed. He stopped helping with chores, leaving dishes in the sink and his work boots strewn across my carefully designed floors. I'd cook dinner, and he'd complain it wasn't fancy enough, then retreat to his man cave without so much as a thank you. We'd agreed to split housework evenly before we married, but now it was all on me. When I called him out, he'd roll his eyes and say, "Housework's easy, Reagan. It's women's work. I'm out there earning for us." Earning? He barely contributed to our bills, blowing his paycheck on gadgets and nights out while I covered the mortgage and utilities. It didn't help that I made more than him. My design business was thriving, clients loved my work, and I was saving for our future. David, though, saw my success as a threat. He'd mutter about how greedy I was, even though I was the one keeping us afloat. Then came Jessica. I found out about her one evening, scrolling through social media. A post from a woman I didn't know. Date night with my future husband at a fancy Atlanta bistro. So nervous. The photo showed David, grinning, his arm around her. My heart sank, but not with anger, just a hollow ache. I dug deeper, found their texts on his phone, and pieced it together. For 6 months, he'd been sneaking around with Jessica, a temp at his company, who thought she'd hit the jackpot with my husband and my home. I wasn't going to beg or scream. Instead, I made a plan. I'd worked too hard, loved too fiercely, to let them walk over me. As I stood in that living room, their taunts echoing, I knew one thing. They had no idea what was coming. The moment I saw that photo of David and Jessica, something inside me shifted. It wasn't rage or tears. It was like a light went out, leaving me in a quiet, empty space. I sat on our couch, the one I'd chosen for its soft gray fabric and perfect lumbar support, staring at my phone. Their texts, full of flirty plans and fancy dinners, felt like a punch I hadn't braced for. But instead of crumbling, I felt a strange clarity. This marriage, this life I'd poured myself into was over, and I was going to take back what was mine. Looking back, I could see the cracks in our marriage forming long before Jessica. David used to be my partner, someone who'd sand down an old table with me and laugh when we got sawdust in our hair. But over the past year, he'd become a stranger. He'd come home from his construction sites, toss his jacket on my polished hardwood floors, and eat the dinners I'd spent hours preparing without a word of thanks. "This chicken's dry," he'd grumble, or "Can't you make something more exciting?" Then he'd disappear into his room, leaving me to clean up his mess. We'd agreed to split chores, laundry, dishes, vacuuming, but he acted like those promises were a joke. "I'm out there working hard, Reagan," he'd say. "You've got it easy with your design gigs." Easy? I was running a business, meeting clients, sketching layouts late into the night. My income paid for the sleek appliances in our kitchen, the custom curtains in our dining room, the life we were supposed to share. David, meanwhile, burned through his paychecks on new tools he didn't need or drinks with his buddies. I'd beg him to save, to think about our future, but he'd snap. "Why do you need more, Reagan? You're already raking it in." My success became his excuse to do less, to resent me more. He even started bad-mouthing me to his coworkers, painting me as some controlling miser who held the purse strings too tight. That's how Jessica slithered in. She was 25, a temp at David's company, all smiles and ambition. I saw her type from a mile away, someone who saw a nice house and a charming guy and thought she could slide into my life like it was hers for the taking. Her social media was a goldmine of evidence. Selfies with David at restaurants I'd never been to, captions about her future husband. I saved every post, every text I found on David's phone when he left it unlocked one night. The betrayal didn't break me. It focused me. I wasn't going to let them rewrite my story. A few weeks later, I found a lawyer, a sharp woman named Rachel who specialized in clean divorces. She listened to my story, nodding as I explained the house, the furniture, and David's affair. "You've got a strong case," she said. "And that no division of property clause you two agreed on? That's your ace." Before we married, David and I had signed a prenup, agreeing that assets wouldn't be split in a divorce. It was my idea, since I was already building my career and wanted to protect my earnings. David didn't care. He inherited the house from his parents, who'd used it as a rental, so he thought he was set. What he didn't realize was that everything making that house a home came from my wallet. I decided to confront David and Jessica together. One Saturday, I called them to our dining room, the one with the walnut table I'd spent weeks picking out. David looked annoyed, like I was wasting his time. Jessica, though, was practically bouncing, her eyes gleaming as she took in the room's modern chandelier and plush rugs. "So, Reagan," she said, barely hiding her smirk, "you're really okay with walking away? I mean, this house is perfect for us." No apology, no shame, just pure entitlement. I leaned back in my chair, keeping my face calm. "That's right," I said. David and I agreed. No division of assets. "I'm taking what's mine." Jessica grabbed David's hand, practically squealing. "Oh, that's amazing. We're so thrilled." David grinned, oblivious. They thought they were getting the house and all its contents, lock, stock, and barrel. I didn't correct them. Let them dream. My heart ached, not for David's betrayal, but for the life I'd thought we'd build. Still, I felt a spark of something new, resolve. I was done compromising for someone who didn't value me. It was time to take back my power. Sitting across from David and Jessica at that dining table, I felt like I was watching a bad movie, one where the villains think they've won before the hero pulls the rug out. Jessica's smug grin, David's careless shrug, they had no idea what was coming. I'd spent weeks planning this moment, every detail locked in place like the perfect layout for a client's living room. My lawyer, Rachel, had walked me through it. The prenup, the receipts, the proof that every beautiful thing in this house was mine. But looking at their faces, I didn't feel triumph yet, just a heavy ache for the life I'd lost and the strength I was about to find. Jessica leaned forward, her voice dripping with fake concern. "Reagan, you sure you're okay giving all this up?" She gestured at the room, the sleek coffee table, the stainless steel fridge humming in the kitchen, the custom wallpaper I'd had designed by an artist friend. "I mean, it's just so thus." David chuckled, squeezing her hand. No remorse, no hint of guilt for the affair they hadn't even bothered to hide. It stung, but I kept my face neutral, my hands folded on the table. "Like I said," I replied, my voice steady, "I'm taking my personal belongings. You know, the things I paid for. No division of property, right, David?" He nodded, barely listening, probably imagining himself playing house with Jessica. Yeah, take your stuff," he said. "We don't need your old clothes cluttering up our space." Jessica giggled, and I let them laugh. They thought personal belongings meant a suitcase of dresses and maybe a few knickknacks. They didn't know every piece of furniture, every appliance, every inch of that wallpaper was mine, bought with my money, chosen with my vision. I stood up, smoothing my skirt. "Just be ready for the movers tomorrow," I said. Jessica's eyes lit up, like she was already planning a housewarming party. David just waved me off, muttering, "Good riddance." I walked out of the dining room, my heart pounding. Part of me wanted to scream, to throw their betrayal in their faces, but that wasn't the plan. I'd spent 3 years compromising, swallowing my frustration as David ignored our agreements, spent recklessly, and then cheated. No more. This was my moment to reclaim what I'd built. That night, I lay awake in the guest room, staring at the ceiling. I thought about the early days with David, how we'd stay up late dreaming about this house. It was his parents' old rental property, a fixer-upper in suburban Atlanta with good bones, but no charm. When we moved in, David had furnished it with thrift store junk, rickety tables, a fridge that rattled like it was haunted. I couldn't stand it. As an interior designer, I saw potential in every space, so I poured my savings into making it a home. I bought modern furniture, high-end appliances, even had that wallpaper custom-made to tie the rooms together. David didn't care about the cost. He just liked showing off the results to his friends. Now, he and Jessica thought they'd inherit it all. The hurt was still there, a dull ache in my chest. I wasn't angry at David for cheating, not anymore. I was angry at myself for believing he'd change, for thinking I could fix him with love and patience. But that ache was fueling something else. Determination. I wasn't going to let them take my work, my pride, my life. Tomorrow, they'd see exactly what no division of property meant. For the first time in months, I fell asleep with a flicker of hope, knowing I was about to take back everything I'd earned. The morning of moving day, I woke up feeling like a weight had lifted. The sun streamed through the windows of our Atlanta home, glinting off the polished surfaces I'd chosen so carefully. David and Jessica were already there, hovering like vultures, probably thinking they were sending me off to a sad new life. Jessica stood in the living room, hands on her hips, eyeing my leather sectional like it was already hers. David leaned against the wall, smirking. "Let's make this quick, Reagan," he said. "We've got plans." I smiled, just a little. "Oh, don't worry. The movers are on their way." Right on cue, a big truck rumbled up the driveway, followed by a second one. The crew spilled out, all business, clipboards in hand. "Morning, Reagan," the lead guy called. "We've got everything covered. Just point us to what's yours." Jessica's smile faltered. "2 trucks?" she asked, her voice tight. "You've got that much stuff?" I couldn't help it, a laugh slipped out. "The house belongs to David," I said, turning to them. "But everything inside? The furniture, the appliances, that custom wallpaper? All mine. I told you, no division of property." David's face went slack, like he'd been slapped. Jessica's eyes widened, darting around the room. "Wait, what?" she stammered. "You're not taking everything, are you?" I didn't answer right away. I just watched as the movers started hauling out the dining table, the sleek fridge, the mounted TV. David ran to the study, probably digging for receipts, but it was pointless. Every piece in this house was bought with my money, documented with my name. When we moved in, David had gotten rid of his old, secondhand junk, happy to let me upgrade everything. I'd spent months curating this space, mid-century chairs, a smart oven, wallpaper that made the rooms feel like a magazine spread. As an interior designer, I didn't just furnish a house. I created a vibe, a home that turned heads. And now I was taking it all back. Jessica's voice rose to a shriek. This is insane. You can't just strip the house bare. She grabbed David's arm, but he was too busy staring at the movers dismantling the entertainment center. Reagan, come on, he said, his voice low, almost pleading. You don't need all this. Just take your clothes and go. I laughed again, louder this time, the sound echoing in the emptying room. You told me to take my stuff, David. You said it'd remind you of our miserable years. I'm just doing what you ask. The movers worked fast, carrying out lamps, rugs, even the kitchen island stools. Then my friend Marcus arrived, a designer I'd met through work. Hey, Reagan, he called, hopping out of his van. Ready for the wallpaper? Jessica's jaw dropped. The wallpaper? She gasped. I nodded. Custom made. Paid for by me. Marcus is taking it for a project. It's reusable with a little TLC. Marcus grinned, already peeling a strip from the living room wall. David stepped forward, his face red. Reagan, please at least leave that. It's just wallpaper. I crossed my arms, feeling a surge of satisfaction. You said you didn't want reminders of me, right? I'm making sure you get a clean slate. He opened his mouth, then closed it, defeated. Jessica was practically vibrating with rage, muttering about how ridiculous this was. The movers finished, leaving the house stark and bare, its walls scratched and floors scuffed from years of neglect David had ignored. One of the movers glanced at me, concerned. House is empty now, Reagan. You sure about this? Absolutely, I said, my voice firm. Deliver everything to my parents' place. I'll sort out there. As the trucks pulled away, I looked at David and Jessica, standing in their hollowed-out house. The smugness was gone, replaced by shock and a dawning realization of what they'd lost. I felt a pang, not of guilt, but of pride. I'd built this home, and I was taking it with me. For the first time in years, I felt like myself again, ready to leave them behind in the mess they'd made. A few weeks after moving day, I stood in my parents' garage, surrounded by the furniture and appliances I'd taken from the Atlanta house. The sleek sectional, the stainless steel fridge, the custom lamps, they were all there, but they didn't feel like mine anymore. Every piece carried memories of David, of nights spent arguing over bills or cleaning up his messes. I called a friend, a buyer who dealt in high-end home goods, and sold it all. The furniture was in pristine condition, and I got a better price than I'd hoped. As I watched the last chair get loaded onto a truck, I felt lighter, like I was shedding the weight of a life that no longer fit. I moved into a new place, a cozy condo in downtown Atlanta with big windows and a view of the city skyline. I started fresh, picking out furniture that felt like me. Bold colors, clean lines, no ghosts of the past. But then, one afternoon, my phone buzzed with a call from David. I almost didn't answer, but curiosity got the better of me. Reagan, he said, his voice tired. Can you come by the house? Linda's losing it over the decor, and we need your help. Against my better judgment, I went. The house looked worse than I'd imagined. No new wallpaper, just bare, stained walls. The furniture was a mismatched collection of thrift store finds, a sagging couch, a chipped coffee table, a fridge that hummed like it was on its last legs. It was like stepping into a bad college apartment. David looked exhausted, his charm replaced by a slump in his shoulders. Jessica, meanwhile, was fuming. This is a disaster, she snapped, glaring at me like it was my fault. You're a designer, right? Use your fancy connections and fix this. Make it a home we can show off. I stared at her, stunned. You want me to decorate this place? On what budget? Jessica threw out a number so low it was laughable. I shook my head. No one can turn this into a showroom with that. You need to rethink your priorities. She exploded, accusing me of looking down on her, of thinking I was better because of my job. David tried to calm her, but he looked defeated. Reagan, please, he said quietly. Things aren't great with us. I messed up. I know you were the best thing I ever had. I felt a flicker of pity, but it was drowned out by a surge of anger. You told me to get out, David. I said, my voice sharp. You chose this. You and Jessica can figure out your dream home together. I turned to leave, but he grabbed my arm. Reagan, I'm serious. I want you back. I pulled away, my heart racing. Don't call me again, I said. This is your life now. Live it. I walked out, the sound of Jessica's shouting fading behind me. Later, I heard through mutual friends that David and Jessica's families had cut them off. No one would help them replace the furniture or forgive their affair-fueled marriage. They were stuck in that rundown house, surrounded by secondhand junk, their dreams of a glamorous life shattered. I didn't feel sorry for them. They'd made their choices, and I'd made mine. As for me, I was done looking back. Through work, I met a guy named Ethan, an architect with a warm laugh and a passion for sustainable design. We started hanging out on weekends, grabbing coffee, or sketching ideas for dream projects. I was cautious. David's betrayal had left scars, but Ethan's kindness felt like a door opening. One evening, as we sat on my new balcony, watching the Atlanta skyline light up, I felt something I hadn't in years. Hope. I was ready to build a new life, one piece at a time, on my own terms. To everyone who's followed this journey, thank you. You've walked with me through betrayal, heartbreak, and a comeback that felt sweeter than I could have imagined. If my story hit you where it counts, hit that subscribe button and join me. Every home I design, every choice I make, tells a story of resilience, heart, and starting over. Keep building your own truth, and I'll see you in the next chapter.
And that wraps up today's story. Now we want to hear from you. Where are you watching from? Drop your city or country in the comments, and let's see how far these stories reach. If this story moved you or gave you chills, give it a like, share, and subscribe for more powerful stories. One last thing, rate the story from 1 to 10 in the comments. Your feedback helps us bring you even better ones next time. Thanks for watching. We appreciate you being part of this storytelling journey.